Welcome to Tribulation, day 87. And the world continues to spiral out of control into chaos. Yesterday, the global markets were rocked. The United States stock market dropped 634 points. Today, the market's up a little bit, but I'm going to tell you right now, don't believe none of that. Get the hell out of the market. If you listen to the news, TV, what I will tell you is you will never, ever, ever have an analyst or an economic expert tell you to get out of the market. They'll always, even as it's dropping 1,000 points, 2,000 points, they'll say, oh, buy, buy, buy. It's always buy. Because they want you to be part of the scam. That's how they all make their money, is sucking all your money away from you. But the real reality is, we're having an economic global meltdown. In Europe, there's at least half a dozen countries that are all on the verge of defaulting on their debts. There's just no real reason to believe that there's going to be brighter economic news anytime soon, which sucks. The negative and really dark side of it all is just like the Great Depression back in the 40s, which was also somewhat of a global depression. What it took to get the world going again was World War II. Because then, all the countries, whether they were part of the Axis or the Allies, their governments were able to generate jobs and economic activity in the form of war. Building weapons, supplies, and gave everybody a purpose and unified everybody. And to top it all off, in the long run, war also cures, overpopulation, clears out real estate, et cetera, et cetera. So even though it's horrible and devastating, when it's all said and done, it kind of positions the world and everybody for rebuilding and growth, which is a good thing, So unfortunately, I think we're now back in that cycle. And, nobody wants war, and it's not even a matter of who's going to start the war, but believe me, everybody knows that a global conflict is pretty much the solution to what's happening right now. So, I'm telling you, we're in the window. Could be tomorrow. It may have already have started. That's my theory. The cyber part of World War III is actually now fully underway. I believe China basically launched their Pearl Harbor attack on the United States about 2 weeks ago, and we're just too dumb or stupid to realize it or actually bring it out in the open. The other thing is in the world, what has always existed and what is now definitely in place is the haves and the have-nots, the ultra-rich, the elite, the rule by secrecy, and the thousands and millions of the poor, destitute masses that are enslaved and, fighting every day for survival. The middle class, which has only really existed in the last 100 years or so, is now an endangered species. Across the planet, discontent, unrest is prevalent. It is shown all across the globe, but it's like a bomb that's been lit and is primed to go off. So what you're seeing more and more of is protesters, maybe starting off peacefully, but ultimately ending up with violence and rioting and looting. And, over in England, in London, it's really something we got to be watching at, because they're going on like their 4th day of rioting, where basically it's the hooligans and the youth, that have no jobs and no future. So they got nothing to lose. That's kind of where I'm at. I got nothing to lose, so I have no fear. That's what you will find is the government, whether it's Obama trying to scare the shit out of you, or your friends or whoever. It's only where you place value, and you're clinging on to the things that you have, your job, your house, your security, your insurance, which makes you basically weak or indifferent, just saying, oh, it's not me, it's them, and not doing anything about what's happening. It isn't until the rioters are at your door throwing bricks through your window and starting to set your house on fire that you're like, oh my God, maybe there is something going on here. So, the situation is wake up to what is actually going on. And of course in America, the same dynamics that are playing out in England, and basically like France had a week or two of rioting, in America, once again, it's the youth, it's minorities, it's the unemployed. Basically, we're getting to a state of chaos. The big news story is these three people, the one brother and sister and the cousin, that are going around robbing, kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde. And I think the reason why they haven't been caught is because most people are rooting for them, because even though what they're doing, they haven't killed anybody, they've just been robbing banks. And what you'll find out is, in the Great Depression, that was actually at an all-time high, robbing banks. Because, just like Obama gets out there and he says, oh, the evil millionaires and billionaires, the corporate jet owners, the evil bankers. Well, you know what? I'll tell you honestly, I could care less about banks and bankers, but that's kind of, part of it all is then as people get desperate and run out into the street with bricks and pitchforks and fires, they say, oh, who should we, tear up? And it's like, oh, let's tear up the government, let's tear up the police, let's tear up the rich people, the bankers. And that's why, really right now, as of today, I got a serious, problem with our president being the fearmonger in chief, the, doing the blame game. It's no longer God bless America, it's God blame America. God blame everybody. God blame the Tea Party, God blame Republicans, and it's like, isn't it ironic how George Bush could be responsible for everything and yet Obama's responsible for nothing? Isn't that just a complete hypocrisy and contradiction? If George Bush was responsible for everything, then Obama is responsible for everything. If Obama didn't cause what's going on, then neither did George Bush. He inherited what he got. He inherited Bill Clinton taking his eye off the ball and not giving a shite about the jihad being launched around the world by bin Laden. Bill Clinton had bin Laden and he never did anything with it. So George Bush inherited a war. George Bush inherited a crappy economy because the stock market collapsed right as Clinton got out of office. But you know what? You won't ever hear Obama talking truth to power. Obama is just into propaganda and fear-mongering, So I don't know whether he's the Antichrist because, to be honest, I don't think that the Antichrist is an actual person. I think it's more of a figurative thing, just a general picture that there will be sinister forces and people that just aren't looking out for the general well-being of the masses. And Obama can flap his lips and jibber jab all he wants about how hard he's working, but when we look at all the vacations he's taken, at how he campaigns every single day, and he keeps saying, hey, we got to set political we got to not be political, we got to set the election aside, and then the very next day he's out at a fundraiser. It's like, how stupid do you think we are? And I'll tell you what, Obama thinks we're complete morons. And that's sad. So, no disrespect, but, I think Obama's a moron, which, once again is playing into why everything is going to go to hell in a handbasket. Now, just to switch gears a little bit, one of the other aspects of the tribulation is climate change, earth change, galactic change, the whole 2012 galactic alignment, what the hell's going on there. I kind of touched on it a few blogs back. A lot of people are looking into the return of Nibiru or aliens. Maybe they're already here or just making their presence known. But, I kind of believe one thing, because I don't know exactly what the truth is, but I know one thing. I really don't believe our government will be square with us in any way, shape, or form and tell us the truth If we were facing imminent disaster, they sure as hell wouldn't tell us about it. And, to me, I don't know why, but, when I look at, like, what's going on in outer space, I don't believe none of it, like, we got orbiters going around Mars and Venus and Pluto, but we don't have any orbiters going around the moon. By now, we got Google with satellites to where, they go around the Earth, and you can use Google to look at any place on Earth, almost, because there still seems to be, like, areas that you can't look at, like the North and South poles are kind of covered up, and there's this whole hollow Earth theory. And, I've talked to a NASA scientist who kind of told me, hey, Bent, there's a big cover-up and there's something to it. The whole hollow Earth concept is kind of like if you put your clothes into a washing machine and they're spinning around, you notice centrifugal force makes the clothes go to the outside of the basket, leaving a hollow space to the inside. Well, why wouldn't that same principle work with the Earth, that if it's spinning around, then there'd be a hollow space to the inside? But, once again, I can't prove nor disprove it, but there's just question marks and information that's being hidden from our view. The moon is a big mystery, why we went to the moon, if we ever actually got to the moon, and why we're not going back to the moon, why there's no satellites around the moon, why, we're saying, hey, we're going to go back to the moon, it's going to take 30 years, where supposedly it only took 10 years the first time. Nothing makes sense. And the latest news today is NASA said that the sun just emitted a big, huge solar flare that's going to cause disruptions in the radio, but isn't going to be harmful to us. You're like, right, NASA, they ain't going to tell us. Hey, attention citizens, attention people of the world, there's a solar flare that's got radiation that's going to, increase cancer by 50% over the next 10 years. It's going to hit us, in about 4 hours. They're never going to tell us that. And, once again, I'm not really a scientist, so, I can only, come to conclusions based on the information I'm reading. But what I do know from NASA's own website in observatory, the SOHO, is that our sun, the sun has what they call sunspot cycles that last, 10 years or something like that, but that the current cycle that we're in, there's been just a record low in sunspot and sun flare activity. And what some people have speculated is that this low period of activity has actually affected Earth, has cooled down the planet, has kind of made our atmosphere collapse a little bit. But now with this new solar flare that just kicked out, I'm thinking, maybe now we're approaching a new, if we had this super low period, now we're entering this super high period, because that's what a lot of people feel is one of the things that's going to be a factor in this whole galactic, 2012 alignment, is that the sun possibly in a sun flare could be having a major impact on our lives. Like, there's been some movies out there where, the sun flare literally incinerates the whole Earth, and, life as we know it stops instantly. So, I don't know. I'm just going to keep an eye on it. I don't know that there's anything we can do if that's actually what's happening out there, But for some reason, I got to ask the question, is the sun getting hotter? Is the sun, the activity which was low shifting to high, and does it all affect us, and is our government kind of covering up all this information? Maybe the government even knows about a pole shift or flooding or great earthquakes. Maybe the aliens are in communications with our government, so they know and our government knows. The only people that don't know is the masses, the clueless wonders. They're happy that we're just out in the streets rioting and looting and just trying to grab what's ours, because, rather than taking a step back and saying, man, what should we actually value, which is family and friends and staying alive and helping one another. No, let's just get out in the street and get what's ours. And the government, I think in the long run, is actually kind of happy about that. But, it makes for good news stories and, with buildings burning and people running in the streets, but it doesn't actually accomplish anything. It doesn't change the system. We could have riots around the world and burn 1 million houses to the ground, and yet the rich will still be rich.